Salut, c'est Cliff, et c'est levé les Cliff. Hi, everybody. I'm Cliff, and this is Life with MS. My French is probably not great, but this is a French study we're talking about today, and it's a very interesting study. If you've been following the channel over the last several months, you may know that if you've been following the channel over the last several years, you may know that I've been trying multiple DMTs with not great results. Effectively, they have been stopping the progression of the disease, and of course, there's a leaf blower aside. But the side effects are so nasty that I actually had to stop both the DMTs I was trying. The first one was Ocrevus. The second one was Kesimpta. I discontinued Kesimpta just over 4 months ago, and I have to tell you, this is the best I have felt in years. Why did I stop the Kesimpta? I was getting respiratory infections that I could not clear up. I would literally get a really nasty respiratory infection, and then it would get so bad I had to take antibiotics. One time I was hospitalized and put in the ER. And then 2 weeks later, after it all cleared up, it would just come right back. And that happened time and time and time again. So I talked to my neurologist and I said, I can't do this. This is crazy. And I went off the DMT. So where do I go from here? And that is the million-dollar question, almost quite literally. I have got to make a decision coming up in the next few months about whether or not I go back on a DMT. And initially, some research that I found, which I also highlighted in some other episodes, indicated that once you reach a certain age, that studies have shown that maybe the MS won't progress to a point that it's actually noticeable. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool and promising because I really don't want to go back on stuff. However, I recently had a meetup with two of my friends who have multiple sclerosis. One of them went off hers not too long ago, and the other one went off his not too long ago. Both of them have had the disease progress, and one in a very noticeable way. It's quite unfortunate. And they are both in their 50s and 60s in terms of age, and it got me thinking, man, I feel very, very unsafe moving forward without a DMT, and I would really hate to go back on one because I've felt so great off of it. I've had just tons of energy. My son and I entered a NASA competition that we won to design and develop something for the next moon launch. And then I finished personal training certifications with a specialty in multiple sclerosis. And I've just had a lot of energy to do a lot of fun stuff with the family. And the fact that like when I go on the DMTs, I am just drained and I feel fatigued all the time and it's hard to concentrate. It's kind of soul crushing. I got to be honest with you, and I don't want to do it. But this study that I found today is kind of interesting, and it's about a drug that's not new to the market. It's Tysabri. Most of you are familiar with it because you may have had it in your repertoire of drugs at some point if you have multiple sclerosis for treating relapsing remitting MS. And the study is all about in how Tysabri affected people's output and production and their overall attitude. So now let's jump into the study summary and read what the study was about, how they performed it, and what the outcome was. I think you're going to find this very interesting, especially if you are in the position of choosing a drug right now, if you've been newly diagnosed, or if you're getting ready to transition to another drug because you just can't simply seem to handle the drug you're on, or it's not working for you in terms of stopping the multiple sclerosis. Okay, so we know that MS is a difficult condition to address because things like the fatigue, the trouble walking, the pain, the thinking clearly, all that stuff are just really, really not only consistent, but also random. Does that make sense? Like, we just never know when we're going to be dealing with these things, and the drugs greatly affect those things, even though they're all about stopping the progression of the disease. That's what they're clinically studied for. They do seem to actually help a lot with the symptom management, along with other things to supplement that. But I have found that the drugs do actually assist me with the symptom management. It's just that the side effects are unbearable from the drug itself, but that's not the case for everybody. So there's this thing that came out called the Titan study. That looks specifically at Tysabri, which, of course, as you probably know, is an infusion treatment to see how it helps people with relapsing remitting who are working. Biogen, the company that makes it, helped with the study, by the way. So were they biased? Were they unbiased? I don't know. We have to think about that. Anyway, The study followed 162 adults with relapsing remitting MS, and most were just starting Tysabri or had only been on one dose. The average age was about 37, and yes, most of the participants were women. And probably because women are responsible and get follow up and do all that stuff, but also women often get the majority of the diagnosis in relapse and remitting as of right now. And there's a variety of factors for that, but we won't get into that right now. So, what are the findings? Well, after just 1 year on Tysabri, a majority of these folks were doing really good with work. They saw significant improvements. They said they missed much less work specifically because of their MS. Also, the work efficiency got better and the overall work impairment, well, it really went down. In short, the Tysabri helped reduce the challenging MS symptoms that make work difficult. And if you are dealing with MS right now, and chances are you are because you're watching this video, we know that like the fatigue is an absolute killer. And in fact, I applied for a job recently just to bring in some extra cash. I went through the interview process, and when they told me that the job in clinic was going to be 10 to 11 hours a day, I said, can I do part-time 4 hours? And in the beginning, they were all excited about having me participate and be involved. And then when I said I could only do part-time at 4 hours because that's when my fatigue kicks in and I'm no longer super reliable in terms of accuracy of the job description, they basically dropped me like a rock. But I had to be honest, right? And that's the situation, and it sucks for us. But I mean, 10 to 11 hours in a clinic is a long time for anybody, but people do it. They do it 4 times a week and take the Friday off or whatever. They're called healthcare providers, and they just work a lot and very, very hard. So the fact that this Tysabri thing made things better is awesome. But to what extent? Well, let's read on and see if we can find that out. So on that note, the people whose MS actually improved while on the treatment, well, they ended up working more hours compared to the ones with the conditions that stayed the same or got worse. That makes sense, doesn't it? But that's not all. It wasn't just about work. The Titan study also found that the Tysabri made the overall quality of life better too. Now that is really, really important because I don't know about you, but I love spending time with my family and doing things. And whether I'm on the DMT or not, the fatigue is always just overwhelming, and I have to plan ahead for that. So if this is improving the quality of life, that's great. I don't know how they quantified that. I will post a link to the actual study in the description below if you want to go through it and really nerd out about it. The participants felt less affected by their MS overall, and that is not just at work. They reported Tysabri reduced the physical and mental impact of MS. They measured this with some questionnaires. So that's good news, right? And I would love to see that questionnaire. On the medical side, Tysabri seriously cut down on the relapses per year, which is a big deal for MS. And while their overall disability scores didn't change a lot for the most folks after a year, the fact that the relapses dropped and they felt better symptom-wise really helped them work better and just feel better overall. So they probably brought to work a better overall positive vibe, and that helps definitely bring the energy level up. I remember when I worked my last office job in engineering, I would have to really, really think about when I walked in that door in the morning, even though I love the job, I love the people, everybody was super cool. We were very challenged at our job. We were building things I was very passionate about, but I was still dealing with super, super crazy fatigue because of the MS. When I would open that door in the morning and walk through that door, I remember thinking, God, I am exhausted just from the commute. How in the hell am I going to make it through the day? But I couldn't show that on my face because I didn't want to bring that vibe into the office and feel people like get drained from my energy. And so I would fake the smile and I'd be like, yeah, let's do this. And actually, it would amp me up. Like I got into this routine of like convincing myself that I wasn't as tired as I actually was. And it worked. But you can't maintain that forever. And that's what sucks about MS. So if Tysabri is helping with that, that's awesome. That was not my experience with a DMT, but that was their experience. But these are only first year people that are diagnosed. From my own personal experience, I didn't really feel the effects of the drug, the negative side effects of either Ocrevus or Kesimpta for about the first 6 to 8 months. And then they both really started hitting me hard. And I think if I look back, both of them, I quit after about 16 months. I wonder what a follow-up would look like. That's my question. So what is the main takeaway from the Titan research study? Well, the researchers are saying it looks like starting Tysabri relatively early on with RRMS can really improve your ability to work. That's not just good for feeling better and having a better life, but it also helps reduce economic stress of the disease because it helps people stay at their jobs. And that is overall a great outcome. So, what is said here is really interesting. I want to add a piece to this. It says these are people that were early on in their MS journey, not just first years, but they hadn't progressed that much yet. By the time I was on drugs, after 10 years of trying to find a diagnosis, I'd already progressed a lot and I had a lot of damage. So maybe that's the difference. So it appears they picked a group of people that were very, very early in their MS journey and they caught it early. And maybe that's why they have a better outcome. We do know that finding MS earlier results in less damage, results in less symptoms. So maybe that's the secret. This is definitely positive news, right? Maybe I need to start thinking about Tysabri for my next infusion. I know a lot of people that have been on it, and some have had great experiences. Some have said it stopped working after a while. I'm interested in knowing what you think about this study. Of course, I'm going to post this all in the link below. And what has been your experience with Tysabri within the first year? Leave it in the comments so if you're willing to share that information, it might help people who are considering a new DMT or who are newly diagnosed make a decision about which direction they want to go with a disease-modifying therapy and their multiple sclerosis. Now, I have to make a decision in June, and like I said before, after seeing my friends progress after they stopped their DMTs because of nasty side effects, initially, I was like, I'm not getting back on that stuff. I might be looking at Tysabri. I might be looking at Mavenclad because I don't want to end up where they're at. Even though they're functional, really great human beings, it's obvious that stopping their stuff had negative consequences. And a study that I recapped a few episodes ago said that, yeah, people that stop their DMTs at an older age tend to get a little bit more progression, but it's not typically the type of progression that has really damaging effects. However, 100% of the people that I know personally, face to face, person to person, local in my community that have stopped their DMTs have had really bad consequences from it. So that concerns me greatly. And they are also older than me, some 5 years, some 10 years. And I'm 48. So that is concerning. All signs point to continue a DMT, which is it's just a lot to think about. Anyway, that's where we're at. I hope this study information was interesting. Again, I have linked everything below. I'm Cliff, and this is Life with MS.